At my college graduation, my parents handed me a wrapped box. Inside was a used copy of How to Stop Being a Loser with my brother's notes inside. My dad smirked. We circled the relevant chapters. My mom added, "Maybe next year you'll earn a real gift." I tossed the book and left home. 2 months later, their calls came screaming in. I'm 26 now, but growing up, I was always the sensitive one. That wasn't a compliment in our house. My father, Richard, is what polite society calls achievement-oriented. What they don't say is how that translates to relentless criticism disguised as motivation. Dad built his construction company from nothing. Self-made man. His favorite phrase was results or excuses, pick one. And in our family, only one of those was acceptable. My mother, Elizabeth, comes from old money and old expectations. She married my father because he had ambition. She stayed because divorce would be admitting failure. Her specialty was the disapproving silence, the raised eyebrow that could make you feel 2 inches tall. And then there's my brother, Michael, 3 years older, Dad's carbon copy. Varsity, everything, business school, now Dad's right hand at the company. The golden standard against which I was constantly measured and found wanting. I was the odd one out. Creative. Questioning. I chose literature and philosophy instead of business. Every A- was a failure. Every accomplishment came with "Michael did it better," or "Is this really the best use of your time?" Family dinners were interrogations. What are your plans? How will this make money? Who's going to hire someone with these skills? The message was clear. My worth was tied to achievements they could brag about at country club gatherings. When I got into college, a good one, by the way, my dad's first words were, "At least it's not community college." My mom added, "Let's hope you can keep up with the workload." College was my first taste of freedom. For years where my thoughts mattered. Where professors encouraged questions instead of shutting them down. Where I could breathe without someone measuring how well I was doing it. By senior year, I was thriving. Dean's List. Research assistant position. A job lined up at a publishing house. Not the corporate law track they wanted, but something I was genuinely excited about. And somehow, foolishly, I thought that might finally be enough. That graduation day might be the moment they'd see me, really see me, and be proud of who I'd become, not disappointed in who I wasn't. I even practiced what I'd say when they congratulated me. Rehearsed my smile when they'd finally give me that nod of approval I'd been chasing my whole life. Instead, they waited until we were back at the house, away from witnesses. My extended family had gone home. Just the four of us in the living room when my mother handed me that perfectly wrapped box with that thin, expectant smile. That's the thing about growing up in a house like mine. You learn to hope, even when experience teaches you better. You learn to keep offering your heart, even after it's been handed back to you bruised. But sometimes it takes one moment, one final, crushing blow, to finally understand that some people will never give you what you need, no matter how perfectly you perform. And that graduation gift, it wasn't just a cruel joke. It was the moment everything changed. The gift didn't come out of nowhere. Looking back, I can trace a perfect line through my childhood, each moment another brick in the wall between us. It started small. I was 8 when I brought home my first story from creative writing class. My teacher had written exceptional imagination across the top in bright red pen. I remember racing home, clutching that paper like it was made of gold. My father barely looked up from his phone. "Writing stories won't pay the bills," he said. My mother glanced at it and asked if I'd finished my math homework. Michael, who just won his first baseball trophy, rolled his eyes. Nobody cares about made-up stuff. That became the pattern. Art projects met with sighs. Academic achievements met with "Michael did better." Always the comparison. Always the reminder that my best wasn't quite good enough. Family dinners were a special kind of torture. Dad would go around the table asking about our days. Michael's baseball wins, business club leadership, those got nods of approval. When it was my turn, anything I shared was an opportunity for improvement. B+ in chemistry? What happened to the other points? Jennifer's daughter got all A's, and she has a learning disability. And heaven forbid I ever disagree or defend myself. My dad would raise his voice. "Don't talk back to me." This attitude is exactly your problem. MOM would cut in. Why do you always have to make things difficult? By middle school, I learned to shrink myself. Be quieter. Take up less space. Maybe if I was perfect enough, small enough, agreeable enough, maybe then. High school brought new opportunities for disappointment. I was editor of the school literary magazine, a position I worked 2 years to earn. The day I told them, my father looked genuinely confused. What exactly is the point of that? Colleges look for leadership, but in something that matters. Mom, sipping wine, added, "It's fine as a hobby, dear, but you should really focus on the debate team like your brother did." It wasn't that they didn't love me. That's the complicated part. They did in their way. They just loved the version of me they wanted me to be. The one who would follow their blueprint without question. When college acceptance letters came, I had options. Good ones. But I made the mistake of choosing based on a writing program, not prestige. Dad's voice boomed. "We didn't raise you to waste your potential. This is about your future." Mom said, "Everyone will think something's wrong with you, that you couldn't get in anywhere better." Michael added, smugly, "Should have studied harder like I did." I went anyway, and for 4 years I thrived. Made Dean's List every semester. Published in student journals. Found my voice. Found friends who actually liked me for me. But every holiday, every visit home was a reminder. Nothing had changed. My father still introduced Michael as my son, the future CEO, and me as my other one. My mother still scrutinized my weight, my clothes, and my lack of a suitable boyfriend. The weekly calls were worse. "Have you thought about law school yet? Jennifer's daughter is at Harvard Law. Your cousin just got engaged. Don't wait too long. No one wants damaged goods." By senior year, I was in therapy, learning that their voices in my head weren't mine. Learning that love shouldn't feel like constantly trying to prove you deserve it. But there was still this tiny part of me, this stubborn, foolish kernel of hope, that somehow graduation would change things. That seeing me walk across that stage, degree in hand, summa cum laude, job already lined up, maybe, just maybe they'd finally see me. Really see me. Michael had graduated with honors 3 years earlier. Dad had thrown him a party with 100 guests. Mom had cried with pride. For my graduation, a dinner reservation they kept checking their watches during. And then we got home, and my mother handed me that box with this strange little smile I couldn't read. My father leaned forward, watching me intently. Even Michael seemed unusually interested. I remember thinking, this is it. This is the moment they finally show me they're proud. That all those years of feeling like I wasn't enough were just in my head. I had no idea that inside that perfectly wrapped box was the final evidence that I had never been wrong about how they saw me. And that sometimes the most painful gift is clarity. For years of college, for years of therapy, for years of building myself back up. And still, I sat there like a child again, heart hammering against my ribs as my mother handed me that box. It was heavy. Heavier than I expected, book-shaped. For one wild moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, it was the first edition of my favorite novel. Something that would finally say, "We see you. We know who you are." The paper made that soft, expensive sound as it gave way. I could smell my mother's perfume on it, Chanel No. 5, always Chanel, mingling with the lemon polish from the coffee table. The room was so quiet I could hear the ice shifting in my father's whiskey glass. Looking back, I should have seen it in their faces. That wasn't excitement in their eyes. It was anticipation, like predators watching prey walk into a trap. How to stop being a loser. The words hit me like a physical blow. Not new, used, dog-eared, and those familiar scribbles in the margins, my brother's handwriting. For a moment, I thought I was hallucinating. This couldn't be real. Not after everything, the degree, the honors, the job offer. This couldn't be what they thought of me, of who I'd become. The silence stretched for what felt like years. My fingers had gone numb against the cover. I remember thinking, ridiculously, that I should say thank you. That's what I've been trained to do, after all. Take the hit, smile, pretend it didn't bleed. And then my father cleared his throat. We circled the relevant chapters. Mother, with poisonous sweetness, added, "Maybe next year you'll earn a real gift." I felt something crack inside me. Not break, crack. Like ice on a frozen lake when the pressure gets too much. Everything suddenly went very still, very clear. I could hear my own breathing, the blood rushing in my ears. I could feel 22 years of trying to be good enough crystallizing into something hard and sharp in my chest. My brother chuckled. Come on, it's just a joke. Don't be so sensitive. That's when I realized something. This moment, this cruel, calculated moment, wasn't new. It was just concentrated. The perfect distillation of our entire relationship. The expectations I could never meet. The love always kept just out of reach. My father was watching me, waiting for the tears. My mother had that familiar look, disappointed but not surprised. My brother was already reaching for his phone, bored with my reaction. They expected me to cry, to apologize, to promise I'd try harder. That's how this dance has always gone. They push, I bend, we pretend nothing happened. But something had changed in me. Something fundamental. I looked down at this book, this monument to years of subtle cruelty, and suddenly saw it for what it was. Not a joke, not tough love, not a challenge to do better. It was the truth, the unfiltered truth about how they saw me, had always seen me, a loser, a disappointment, a project to be fixed. And in that moment, with perfect clarity, I finally understood. I would never be enough for them. Not because I couldn't be, but because they had decided, long ago, that I wasn't worth seeing. I set the book down on the coffee table. Carefully, precisely, like I was handling something toxic. And as I looked up at their faces, expectant, waiting for my usual apology, my usual attempt to smooth things over, I felt something strange happen. The weight I'd been carrying for as long as I could remember, it began to lift. That book wasn't just a cruel gift. It was a turning point. The moment I finally saw what I'd been too afraid to admit, that no achievement, no degree, no success would ever change how they saw me. And more importantly, it was the moment I decided their vision of me no longer mattered. In that frozen moment, my mind was racing. 22 years of conditioning screamed at me to smooth things over. Laugh it off. Make it easier for everyone else. I could feel the script writing itself in my head. Thanks, guys. Very funny. Maybe even make a self-deprecating joke to show I was a good sport. That's what they expected. That's what I always did. But something different was happening inside me. Like watching two versions of myself at war. The obedient daughter versus someone new. Someone who was finally angry. My heartbeat was so loud in my ears I was sure they could hear it. My throat felt tight, like I was choking on all the words I'd never said. All the defenses I'd never made. All the times I'd accepted blame that wasn't mine to carry. I could read their thoughts as clearly as if they'd spoken them. My father was waiting for me to crumble so he could lecture me about taking criticism. My mother was already preparing her speech about being grateful for their honesty. My brother was enjoying the show. That's when a strange calm began to wash over me, like stepping out of a storm into sudden, unexpected silence. I realized I was mourning something that had never existed, parents who could love me for who I actually was. I looked at them, really looked, and saw the truth. This wasn't love. It had never been love. Love doesn't keep score. Love doesn't need you to earn it. Love doesn't hand you a manual on how to fix yourself on the day you should be celebrating. My father broke the tension. Well, aren't you going to say anything? I felt a strange sensation spreading through my chest. Not panic, not hurt, something that felt almost like relief, like finally seeing the answer to a question I'd been asking my whole life. The question was never, how can I make them proud? The question was, why do I keep trying? In that moment, standing there with their gift of contempt between us, I felt something shift inside me. A lifetime of doubt and self-recrimination crystallizing into something hard and certain. A decision. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even hurt, not really. I was just done. Done pretending. Done hoping. Done pouring myself into a relationship that had been designed from the start to keep me small. My mother, with a slight edge of uncertainty, cooed, "Don't be dramatic. It's a joke." In that moment, I saw them, really saw them, not as the towering figures of my childhood, but as they truly were. Small, mean, afraid of anything they couldn't control. And I realized something that changed everything. Their opinion of me had never been about me at all. It had always been about them, their insecurities, their limitations, their need to feel superior. I looked at that book, that perfect encapsulation of our entire relationship, and something settled inside me. A decision that felt like coming home to myself. The hardest part wasn't deciding to leave. The hardest part was realizing I should have done it years ago. They were waiting for tears, for apologies, for the familiar dance of hurt and forgiveness that kept their world in comfortable order. But for the first time in my life, I knew exactly what I was going to do. And it wasn't what anyone in that room expected. I didn't plan what happened next. I didn't rehearse it. It flowed from somewhere deep and true inside me, a place they had never been able to reach. My father was the first to break the silence. "Well, are you going to say thank you?" I looked at him, really looked, and saw something I'd never noticed before. Fear. Behind the bluster and control was a man terrified of anything he couldn't bend to his will. And for the first time in my life, that included me. I smiled. Not the placating smile they were used to. Something different. Something that belonged only to me. I spoke in a steady voice. "Thank you for the clarity." My mother cut in. "Don't be so sensitive. It's just—" I gently placed the book back on the table, cutting my mother off. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. 22 years of trying to earn their love had taught me exactly how little their approval was actually worth. Then I responded, "I've spent my entire life trying to be enough for you. Today, I finally understand that was never possible." My father cut in with a warning tone. "Now listen here." I calmly cut him off. "No, I'm done listening. I'm done explaining. I'm done apologizing for being exactly who I am." I didn't storm out. I didn't slam doors. Drama was their language, not mine. Instead, I simply left, one foot in front of the other, each step feeling more right than the last. I won't be coming to Sunday dinner, or Christmas, or any other event where I'm expected to make myself smaller so you can feel bigger. My brother stood, suddenly uncertain. "You're overreacting. It's just a stupid book." I turned back and responded. "It was never about the book, Michael. It was about the message." And I finally received it, loud and clear. Something changed in the air of that room. The balance of power shifted. For the first time in my life, I wasn't asking for their approval. I wasn't begging for scraps of affection. I was simply stating facts. You can keep your circles and your chapters and your opinions. I don't need them anymore. My father raised his voice. "You walk out that door, don't expect us to welcome you back with open arms." It should have hurt. That final threat, that last attempt to control me. Instead, it felt like the period at the end of a very long, very painful sentence. That's the thing, Dad. For the first time in my life, I'm not expecting anything from you at all. Behind me, I could hear my mother calling my name, that familiar note of disapproval mixed with something new, uncertainty. My father was saying something about ingratitude, but their voices were already fading, becoming background noise to the sound of my own heartbeat. I stepped outside into the evening air. The sun was setting, painting everything gold. Graduation day, the beginning of something new. I didn't look back. Not at the house, not at the family inside it. Not at the 22 years I'd spent trying to earn love that should have been freely given. I remember every detail of that walk to my car. The weight that had lifted from my shoulders. The strange lightness in my chest. The absolute certainty that I was doing the right thing. Maybe the first completely right thing I'd ever done for myself. I drove away from that house not in anger, not in hurt, but in peace. With each mile that passed, I felt more like myself. More real. More whole. I had no idea where I was going. No plan for what came next. I just knew, with bone-deep certainty, that I was finally free. They had given me a book about how to stop being a loser. Instead, I had stopped being their puppet. Stopped being their disappointment. Stopped being defined by their narrow vision of success. That book was the last gift they would ever give me. And in a way I don't think they intended, it was actually exactly what I needed. The first week of silence was strange. Like the quiet after a lifetime of white noise. I kept waiting for the guilt to set in. The crushing weight of family obligation I'd been trained to carry. Instead, I found myself standing taller, breathing deeper, sleeping through the night for the first time in years. It wasn't that I didn't grieve, I did. But I was grieving the family I had always wanted, not the one I actually had. Then, exactly 6 weeks after graduation, their calls started coming in. First one, then three, then a dozen. Voicemails, text messages, even emails. My father's messages were what you'd expect. Demands disguised as concern. This has gone on long enough. You're being childish. We need to talk about your behavior. My mother's approach was more subtle. We're worried about you. Your father didn't mean anything by it. You're taking this too personally. Michael texted once. You're breaking Mom's heart. As usual, not one message contained what I needed to hear. Not one said, I'm sorry. Not one acknowledged the years of subtle cruelty, the constant criticism, the impossible standards. Their calls weren't about me. They were about control, about preserving the family image, about bringing the wayward daughter back into line. And that's when I knew, really knew, I had made the right choice. Their panic wasn't because they missed me. It was because for the first time in my life, I had done something they couldn't undo, couldn't minimize, couldn't control. 6 months passed, then a year. I went to therapy. I built friendships with people who valued me for exactly who I was. I excelled at my job without anyone moving the goalposts. The calls eventually stopped. The messages grew less frequent, then ceased altogether. I heard through a distant cousin that they had crafted a narrative. I was going through something, was too sensitive, would come around eventually. But I wasn't going through something. I was emerging from something, breaking free from a lifetime of conditional love, and discovering that on the other side of that pain was a version of myself I actually liked, respected, trusted. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I'd stayed. If I'd laughed off that gift, swallow my dignity one more time. The thought makes me shudder. Sometimes the bravest thing isn't standing and fighting. Sometimes it's simply walking away, recognizing that some relationships can't be fixed because the other person doesn't see anything broken. That book, How to Stop Being a Loser, sits on my shelf now. Not as a reminder of pain, but as a monument to the day I chose myself. The day I realized that being loved shouldn't require erasing who you are. Walking away from a toxic family isn't a weakness. It isn't giving up. It's recognizing your own worth when others can't or won't. It's the hardest and bravest choice some of us will ever make. So that's my story. The gift that changed everything, just not in the way my family intended. And I'm sharing it today because I know I'm not alone in this experience. Maybe your story isn't exactly like mine. Maybe for you it was a spouse who made you feel small, a friend who only valued what you could give them, a workplace that demanded your soul in exchange for a paycheck. Whatever your version looks like, I want you to know something I wish someone had told me years ago. You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Not even, especially not, family. If this story resonated with you, share a piece of your journey in the comments below. What was your turning point? What gift finally gave you clarity? What happened when you chose yourself? This channel is about creating community around these difficult truths, about transforming pain into power, about recognizing that sometimes the family we need isn't the one we're born into. It's the one we build for ourselves. Subscribe if you want to be part of this conversation. Hit that notification bell if you want to ensure you never miss a story. And remember, you don't need anyone's permission to set boundaries that protect your peace. Thank you for being here, for listening, for witnessing. Sometimes being heard is the first step toward healing. And sometimes walking away is the greatest act of self-love possible.